first let me apologize for the perfunctory nature of the talk. It's short. The subject is so profound. There's so much material. I just didn't have enough time to really do it justice. We've all heard the phrase, to live to benefit mankind, but first we must vow to do so, or make a resolve in some lifetime. The Buddha praised the supreme power of vows by saying that for realizing Bodhisattva qualities, vows are more powerful than wisdom, patience, or good actions. The Avatamsaka Sutra states that the lamp of Bodhi mind requires compassion as the oil, great vows as its wick, and the great wisdom as its flame. I like that. Yet the altruistic vow or purpose or intention of bodhisattvas is not confined to Buddhism. Spiritually helpful vows, like those of the esoteric school, may be limited to one or just a few lifetimes and focused only on human beings, but such vows are still inspired by bodhicitta, a mind, citta, radiant, bodhi, with compassion, wisdom, and power. For example, HPB writes that Adi Buddha or Mahavishnu is the seed of all Buddhas and avatars. Further, she writes that this bija or seed is the culmination of the totality of spiritual wisdom in the universe. And it has as worshippers all philosophical minds. In this esoteric sense, the Lord Buddha was an incarnation of Mahavishnu. Kapila, the founder of the ancient Sankhya tradition, said that the supreme purpose of life is the ending of all sorrow and pain. Now these aspirations are also the same: aspiration, will, intention, purpose, vow. And I'm sure there are other synonyms. They all mean the same thing, something that you consciously, deliberately foster more than one lifetime if you're so inclined. In the Platonic tradition, Socrates says that the task of founders, I don't know what the Greek for it is, but that's what the translation, a couple of them said, the task of founders is to make sure those newly free of the cave's darkness, you all remember the cave in the Republic, do not linger selfishly in the light, but instead return to the cave and its prisoners and help them. Proclus, a Neoplatonist genius, wrote, to perfect the inferior and provide for the lesser is the nature of souls, since their descent was caused by care for mortals. The Pythagorean tradition takes a vow or oath to always support and respect the divine law, which is the guardian of the central eternal flame. Hierocles, commenting on the golden verses of Pythagoras, says that this vow is the keeper of the divine law throughout the whole world order. And of course, our Theosophical movement has a lot to say about law. Compassion is no attribute, it is the law of laws. Eternal harmony, the light of everlasting right and fitness of all things, the law of love eternal. Now some words from Mr. Judge on the vow or pledge. Pledge, there we go. I'd forgotten that one. Oh, what a groan nature gives to see the heavy karma which man has piled upon himself and all the creatures of the three worlds. This is from the ULT, letters that have helped me. That deep sigh pierces through my heart. How can the load be lifted? Am I to stand for myself while the few strong hands of blessed masters and their friends hold back the awful cloud? Such a vow I registered ages ago to help them, and I must. Then from the aphorisms on karma, which Judge got through HPB, changes may occur in the instrument during one life, so as to make it appropriate for a new class of karma. And this may take place through intensity of thought and the power of a vow. More from Mr. Judge on the vow. Like you, I merely want to work. I seek no powers, nothing. I have made in my heart the martyr's vow. I am devoted as far as my lights in each life will permit to service in the altruist army. Just now I only find the Theosophical Society to work in here. Next time, some other way, or the same. I'm ready to step out of the shade, or step out of the sunshine into the shade so as to make room for others, and I seek no nirvana. The good man who at last becomes even a sage had at one time in his many lives to arouse the desire for the company of holy men, and to keep his desire for progress alive in order to continue on his way. Even a Buddha or a Jesus had first to make a vow, which is a desire, in some lifetime that he would save the world or some part of it, and to persevere with the desire alive in his heart through countless lives. It's fairly easy to pop it off one time in one life, but to keep it up, the intensity must be very great. And Judge continues, that one was from the ocean. Here comes one from Echoes 3. The power of these meditations on Aum, the Self, Atman, Masters, the Lodge, Unity, is not always to be seen fully in one lifetime. One life is too short for the entire work. But these thoughts, vows, and practices surely affect the whole nature and last through the centuries. They bring us further and further along the road to the final perfection of this cycle and draw us to the time when we shall have the power to bless and help mankind. Now to a little bit about Buddhism. Hinayana Buddhism is thought to have no bodhisattva path, or at least be indifferent to it. That's not so. Here's an excerpt from Ledi Sayadaw's book on the Bodhisattva path. This is a Burmese Theravadan, and he writes, "What is meant by the noblest aspiration? It is the verbal and mental undertaking that the Bodhisattva had made at some point of time, eons before taking up the perfections. It was made in these terms: what use is there to get to the yonder shore of Nibbana alone? I will attain to supreme knowledge and then convey men and devas to the other shore." That was the pledge that sent 10,000 universes reeling and echoing in applause. That was the Bodhisattva's earnest wish, for he intensely aspired to supreme self-enlightenment thus: knowing the truth, I will let others know it. Freeing myself from the world, I will free others. Having crossed over, I will enable others to cross. Pardon his oozing eyes. This fervent and most daring aspiration is called the noblest aspiration. The Mahâyâna tradition tells us which kinds of motives will condition a successful treading of the Bodhi path to full Buddhahood. So evidently, as you will see in these next quotes, not every motivation will take us all the way to full Buddhahood, which for many people is fine. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, Bodhisattvas bring forth bodhicitta, or the resolve for Bodhi, for the very first time by one, seeing the Buddha or hearing him speak. Now this doesn't, I don't think, imply in the flesh, because Buddhas are rare, but could be, but it also could be a genuine vision. But that's my interpretation. Number 2, caring for all living beings who undergo intense suffering, or number 3, hearing the Tathagata's vast sublime Dharma. So you'll see there's compassion in number 2, wisdom in number 3, power in the first one, the resolve. They then produce the thought for Bodhi and seek all wisdom. The Bodhisattva's next step is to prepare the foundation by developing 10 attitudes toward all living beings: altruism, compassion, the wish to give happiness, the wish to give security, pity, acceptance, protecting, identification with these beings, acting as their teacher, and being their guiding master. That's from the sutra. Now we switch to the founder of Mahâyâna, I suppose you could say, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, who agrees with the sutra that there are only 3 motivations that will guarantee the eventual reaching of full Buddhahood. There are 4 other possible but not certain major motivations according to Nagarjuna. He says, when beings initially generate the resolve to realize Bodhi, it may find its origin in a total of 7 conditions associated with generating the resolve to gain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which means the unsurpassed right and full or universal or perfect enlightenment. And what are those 7? The Tathagatas may influence 1, to generate the resolve. Number 2, observing that the Buddha Dharma is on the verge of destruction, one generates the resolve in order to guard and protect it. And when in the midst of being, one feels compassion for them and therefore initiates the resolve. So you can see those latter 2 both correspond to the sutra. The next 4 resolutions or vows may likely or may not carry us to full Buddhahood. One may have a Bodhisattva instruct one in generation of the resolve to realize Bodhi. 5, one may observe the conduct of a Bodhisattva, and in emulating him, one may generate the resolve. 6, in the aftermath of an act of giving, one may generate the resolve to realize Bodhi based on that. And I surmise that's not our reaction to how generous we were, but seeing the profound gratitude in some people that flows forth from being helped in that way inspires you to say, that's really a transformative thing to do, and so I will aspire to be a bodhisattva based on that. But that's not the best solution. On number 7, on seeing the characteristic signs of a Buddha's body, one may feel delight and then proceed to generate the resolve. Thus it may be on account of 7 causes and conditions that one generates the resolve to realize Bodhi. Nagarjuna continues, among the 7 sorts of generation of resolve, where the Buddha has instructed one, where one generates resolve in order to protect the Dharma, and where one generates resolve on account of pity, those possessed of the 3 motivations of this sort will definitely be ones who find success, full Buddhahood, in this. As for the other 4 types of motivation, it is not definite that they will succeed in every case. Some may not. Now we switch to Vasubandhu Bodhisattva, who lived 200 or 300 years after Nagarjuna. And his approach to developing bodhicitta is outlined as follows. Now every Bodhisattva worth his salt who writes on the subject will have a unique twist. They share the fundamentals, but their little path, their approach it differs. But since they all work, you don't have to be fussy. Pick one you like. First, the exhortation to delight in cultivating and accumulating the supports for realization of the unsurpassed Bodhi. By resort to such encouragement, one is able to influence other beings. Number 2, to generate profound and vast resolve. And 3, to establish vows, to carry out the most definite form of adornment. It's an odd phrase, but they mean adornment with virtues and powers and abilities that are beneficent and helpful to beings. The next 6 focus on the paramitas, to relinquish lives and wealth in subduing greed, to cultivate moral precepts, teaching and leading forth those transgressing against the prohibitions, to practice ultimate patience by which they control and subdue the hindrance of hatred. 7, to generate heroic vigor through which they establish and stabilize beings on the path, to accumulate dhyana samadhis for the sake of knowing the minds of the many varieties of beings. You can see that's quite different than just blissing out samadhi. This is for a purpose, to understand the minds of others so you can target your help best. Where was I? Number 9, to cultivate wisdom, destroying and eliminating ignorance. To enter the gateway of harmonizing with reality, thus abandoning all forms of attachment. To propagate and explain the extremely profound practices of emptiness and signlessness. This is the shunyata of the Mahâyâna. and to proclaim praises of the associated merit, thus preventing the lineage of the Buddhas from being cut off. If there are no bodhisattvas, there are no Buddhas. So, how does the Bodhisattva generate number 2 on the list, the profound and vast Bodhi resolve? So it's not just a matter of making the vow. You need a lot of good merit, good karma, so that your sincerity and your intensity when you make this vow will have enough impulse to carry you through this life and others beyond. So you need a lot of causal supports, as they say. And they are such things as drawing close to a good spiritual guide, makes offerings to the Buddhas, cultivates and accumulates roots of goodness, resolves to seek the supreme Dharma, maintains constant pliancy and harmoniousness of mind, on encountering suffering remains able to endure it, possesses pure and abundant kindness and compassion, maintains a profound mind dedicated to maintaining equal regard for all, possesses faith and happiness in the Mahâyâna, or the great vehicle, and number 10, seeks to gain the wisdom of the Buddha. If a person is able to embody 10 dharmas such as these, he will then become able to generate the mind resolved on realizing Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. There are 4 additional conditions which may be involved in generating the resolve. It may be based on contemplation of all Buddhas, based on the contemplation of the false and perilous aspects of the physical body, which I assume means samsara in general, a cyclic existence. Number 3, it may be based on seeking the most supreme abilities or powers of Buddhahood. And fourthly, it may be that it's based on kindness and pity for beings. That one generates the Bodhi resolve. How does the Bodhisattva go about setting out towards Bodhi? Through which karmic practices does one bring about the complete realization of Bodhi? The Bodhisattva who has generated the resolve to gain Bodhi and who abides on the ground of dry intellectual wisdom. Well, that means that we need to have an intellectual grasp of either Theosophy or Buddhism, whatever our intellectual structure that we're using. We'd have some good grasp of it first. Then you should first solidly set forth right vows through which he will attract all the countless beings. So he first proclaims the basic vow, and this is Tibetans, Chinese, everybody that follows this tradition says something like this: I seek to realize the unsurpassed Bodhi and to rescue and liberate everyone without exception, so that every one of them is caused to reach all the way to nirvana. Vasubandhu then gives examples of great personal vows that each bodhisattva should make. These great vows extend everywhere to all realms of beings and subsume all vows as numerous as the Ganges sands. I'm not giving those, it's make it too long, but every bodhisattva is expected, after giving a general vow that you really mean, to come up with your own, from your own experience, which you tend to focus on, what I vow in future lives to do. Following these personal vows is this pledge: if beings were to come to an end, then and only then would my vows come to an end. However, beings are truly endless in number. Therefore, these great vows of mine shall also never come to an end. The 6 paramitas are causes of Bodhi because giving serves as a cause of Bodhi, since it draws in all beings. Upholding the moral precepts is a cause of Bodhi, for it leads to the perfection of many sorts of goodness and brings about the fulfillment of one's original vows. Patience serves as a cause of Bodhi, inasmuch as it brings about perfection of the major marks and minor characteristics of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. These are the powers and the abilities, whatnot. Vigor is a cause of Bodhi, since it brings about growth of the practice of goodness and brings about the diligent teaching and transforming of all beings. Dhyana absorption is, that's dhyana samadhi again, is a cause of Bodhi, seeing that by resorting to it the Bodhisattva skillfully trains and disciplines himself while also becoming able to perceive all the mental actions of beings. Wisdom is a cause of Bodhi because by resorting to it, one becomes able to perfectly know the nature and characteristics of all dharmas. To sum up the essentials, the 6 paramitas constitute the correct causes for the realization of Bodhi. The 4 immeasurable minds, the 37 wings of enlightenment, and all of the myriad good practices work cooperatively in assisting its perfect realization. So there's more than the paramitas involved, but those lists I don't know offhand anyway, but I think there was compassion and joy and equanimity, and one other one in the 4. So you have a lot of supporting conditions. It's not just a matter of 6 things or 7. If the Bodhisattva cultivates and accumulates skill in the practice of the 6 paramitas as benefits the practices he's taken up, he gradually succeeds in drawing near to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Vasubandhu also suggests establishing 6 vows or resolutions that support each of the paramitas. Not only you have to vow to practice them, and vow to practice them forever, for everybody, but now you have to have this attitude in mind for each one, so that you don't violate your vow for each individual aspect. For example, for Dana, if some person comes making all sorts of demands, I shall then give to him whatever I possess, even to the point that I will refrain from generating a single thought influenced by miserliness. Were I to generate a selfish thought in reaction to this circumstance, even for a moment, and yet still seek a pure karmic reward from such giving, I would then be cheating all of the many Buddhas throughout the worlds, and would thereby be ensuring that I shall definitely not be able to realize Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So the standard's pretty high. In upholding the moral precepts, I make pure-minded vows to remain free of deviation or regret. Deviation from the vows, regret in taking them up, saying these are too hard, I didn't want to do it. Neither one of those will do. Even where adherence to the precepts might cause my death. In instances where I may be cultivating patience, even where I might be attacked, injured, or even sliced apart, I shall constantly generate lovingly kind vows free of any sort of interference by heedfulness. Now this sounds excessive, but the tradition from the beginning all through the end says the same thing. So it's not just hyperbole. We have to be able to bear what cannot be borne. We have to take what cannot be tolerated, and more. In instances where I cultivate vigor, even where I might encounter circumstances involving cold, heat, government officials, bandits, floods, fires, lions, tigers, wolves, drought, or famine, I must nonetheless solidify and strengthen my resolve so that there is no retreat or sinking away of vows. In instances where I cultivate dhyana absorption, even where I'm disturbed by external circumstances threatening to make it impossible to focus the mind, it is essential, anyway, to bind the mind to the objective, vowing to refrain from bringing forth, even briefly, any sort of distracted thought which is contrary to Dharma. How are we doing on time? Yeah. Okay. In instances where I cultivate the accumulation of wisdom, I contemplate all dharmas in accordance with their true nature, continuing to uphold and maintain the contemplation, even in the midst of that which is good or not good, that which is conditioned or unconditioned, that which is samsaric, or that which is identical to nirvana. I will never bring forth any dualistic views in any of those circumstances. In instances where my mind might fall prey to the hindrances of regret or anger, were I to retreat and sink into such distracted thought that even for the duration of a finger snap, I brought forth duality-based views through which I might instead seek pure karmic rewards arising from the paramitas, I would thereby cheat all of the numberless Buddhas throughout the surrounding realms and would thereby definitely fail to realize Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi in the future. Finally, let's ponder on what the Tang Dynasty sage Pei So, this is around the year 800, says about vows, the most important of the three vast or great minds, and the three vast or great minds are compassion, wisdom, and vows. Since one aspires to engage in liberating beings on a vast scale, one consequently lets expansively great compassion and wisdom flourish. However, even though the mind is fundamentally pure, it has nonetheless long been obscured by one's toiling on amidst the filth of sense objects. One's habitual propensities, by their very nature, are difficult to suddenly melt away. A vessel for the retention of Dharma is such that one must refine the mind through polishing and tempering. One knows there's a prospect of many rebirths in cyclic existence while not encountering the Buddha's teachings about the Bodhisattva path. We forget that, Buddha's Dharma has only been around for 5,000 years, this Buddha, and it's fading fast, in my opinion. Same will happen with Theosophy, so we're going to have many incarnations where there may not be anything that sparkles with the Buddhic light hardly at all. So what's going to carry us through? Consequently, he generates great vows that keep his noble purpose fresh in mind during such lifetimes. He sets about perfecting the cultivation of the myriad practices. These practices, such as the paramitas and the vows, mutually aid each other in just the same way as do the two wings of a bird. Thus it is that one progresses along, does not retreat, and proceeds directly on through to the realization of Bodhi. This is precisely what is intended by the mind established in great vows. These vows or intentions are what does it. Now, among the three types of mind, it is the one committed to great vows which is primary. This is because it constantly supports the compassion and wisdom through which one liberates the many beings. Therefore, along with the initial generation of the Bodhi resolve, one must necessarily bring forth Bodhisattva vows. In the Avatamsaka Sutra's Conduct and Vows of Samantabhadra chapter, it states, when a person approaches the end of life, in that very last instant, all of one's faculties scatter into ruination. All of one's power completely recedes and is lost. It is only your bodhicitta vows which do not forsake one and depart. They always continue to lead one straight through until one reaches Bodhi. Therefore, you must not generate doubts about making such vows, like Samantabhadra's, which I didn't touch on in those 10 famous vows in this paper, or like these 5 traditional ones. First, beings are boundlessly many, I vow to liberate them all. Second, merit and wisdom are limitless, I vow to marshal them. Third, the Dharma of the Buddha is infinite, I vow to master it. These are both the teachings and the meditative inner experiences. Fourth, the Tathagatas are countless, I vow to serve them. And fifth, I vow to realize the unsurpassed right enlightenment, our good friend Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. One maintains these 5 vows, implementing them in one's mind in thought after thought, such that there is no interval in which they are not active. This constitutes complete implementation of the great mind of Bodhi. This is what constitutes the upholding of the precepts of the Bodhi mind. These 3 vast minds, compassion, wisdom, and vows, and the 5 vows are layered one upon the other in a way whereby they support each other. From one Buddha to the next, the path is the same. It does not go beyond this. It is precisely this which constitutes perfect generation of the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi mind. Many other sutras and Mahâyâna masters go into much more detail on the paramitas and the bodhisattva vows, but this glimpse of the bodhicitta realm will have to do for now. And I want to give a plug for my sources. Kalavinka, KALAVINKA.org, has 10 titles, 8 of which are all targeted at paramitas, bodhisattva vows, everything connected with the bodhisattva path. Oh, you put it up? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, those are wonderful texts. If you're very fussy, you might be irritated by Chinese on facing pages. But the bhikshu who translated this had other things in mind than just tickling the palate for our intellectual delight. So the ones...
This is the website?
Yeah, that's... Yeah, let's go through them slowly. All right, that's a great one, this old master of China. If you want to know meditation that's solid, both these. The second title is interesting because have you ever wondered what Buddha's form of meditation was under the Bodhi tree? Tradition says it was a form of meditation on and counting the breath. Very simple. This gives you the details of that. The next one, Nagarjuna's Guide, this is abridged. The one right next to it is the full thing. Beautiful, the blue one is very plump. That gives you everything in detail. The next one on the 6 perfections is a large excerpt from Nagarjuna's commentary on the Prajnaparamita Sutra, a big sutra and a bigger commentary. And that just focuses on the paramitas. Wonderful. This Ratnavali is very famous. This is the one, I believe, where he had, no, I guess that's the other one. This is a great text also, and this is the one where I think Joki mentioned compassion being not emphasized enough. This is one of the few places I found that Nagarjuna gives a 7th paramita, not viraga, but compassion. And he says it includes all, and it's the most important. You'll find that in that text. Letter from a friend, 3 different versions, older than any Tibetan translation. And that's one he wrote. It's kind of more basic. This was, letter from a friend was kind of the, for beginning Buddhists back in ancient India, this is the Mahâyâna. This is what they use as a text. Very important and influential. This is from that same huge commentary. Nagarjuna gave illustrative stories connected with each of the paramitas or any of the teachings. Another very plump book. A lot of traditional stories. This generating the resolve is where the Master Peyu in Nagarjuna's text came from. And there's another text in there by that Shi Xian, 17th century, another great, different approach, but all generating the resolve. And Vasubandhu, yeah, that's, I don't know who to praise the most. We're all wonderful. They'll all take you straight to where you want to go, if you want to go. You have to really want to go, though. Okay, so is that it?